Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. My name is Melissa.
I'm Ellie.
And this week we have part 3 of our Heir of Fire episodes. Yeah, Throne of Glass series that we're doing. It's chapters 36 through 53, and I'm very excited. There's a lot of good, juicy bits that happen in this portion of the book. So I'm excited to jump in. But before we do, Ellie, how was your week?
Yes. It was good. Oh, it was great, actually. I was
like, I'm not convinced, actually, at this point.
Well, it's because my week was like whatever. But my last weekend, and I haven't seen you all since then,
True,
was phenomenal. So I'll tell you about it. 1, we have a friend whose parents are high up in this very, very popular company. I won't say what. And we were like...
It rhymes with Gnome Nemo.
So we asked him, are your parents rich? And he was like, no, they're not.
I think you told me. They said, he said they're comfortable.
And I'm like,
which is what a rich person thing to say.
Says.
I know.
So I'm like, so the point I'm saying this all for is because he invited us up to their house to spend the night, and then we were all just gonna hang out and have fun, whatever. Us and a group of friends. So he was like, no, my parents they're comfortable, whatever. We go to this house. Number 1, he says, give us your license plate number. And I was like, why? He said, we have to let the guard at the front gate know. Immediately, I'm like,
this is more than comfortable.
Okay. So we show up. We go through this guarded gate. This neighborhood is sitting on a private golf course. It's beautiful. And it's not just like you type your code in or whatever, or hit the intercom button. You literally have to give the guard your name and who you're there to see, and they have to validate your license. I mean, it's insane. It's insanity. We go through. This is the biggest house I've ever seen in my life. This is the biggest house I've ever been in. It was nuts. We go down to watch a movie, Pirates of the Caribbean 3, at personal request, might I add. And we go downstairs to the movie room. It's this like massive plasma screen TV with a very nice couch. And I was like, wow, this is a really nice movie room. He looks at me and he's like, Ellie, this isn't the movie room. We walk down the hall. Theater, literally a theater. It is
like a whole like projector screen kind of thing with like movie theater recliners.
Massive. The recliners, the like stage where you go up into more recline. I mean, snacks, popcorn machine. It was
of course
so great.
Probably a vintage popcorn machine.
Yeah, and it was just like all of us, just whatever kids. I don't know. I call us kids. Whatever kids. We're all just super excited. We're like running around the house playing with all the amenities. They have pool tables. They have all these arcade I mean, we are seriously running in and out, jumping in the pool, coming back to play pool, going to the hot tub, sitting around the fire, running in to watch a movie, like just running everywhere. It felt like high school. It felt so fun. Just playing with the parents' cool toys. So
that's so
cool. I had a blast. Yeah.
That's great. I did not do that. No, I had a good week, but a really busy week at work. My job, I guess, kind of is like shifting a little bit with my daily responsibilities, so kind of adjusting to that, but it's been fun. I enjoyed it, and the week went by very fast because of it. So no complaints here. Nothing that special either, but no complaints.
Well, that's good.
It is.
A job is good.
A job is good. A job is great. I'm grateful. Yes, grateful for that. Awesome. Well, if you haven't already listened, we have a really, really fun episode of Hot Goss with Unpopular Sauce this week, where we talk all things witches. So I will say, if you haven't read all 3 series of Sarah J. Maas, all of her books, it's probably there might be like 1 or 2 spoilers. We mostly talk about ACOTAR and Throne of Glass. There's like a little bit of House of Flame and Shadow in there, but for the most part, like if you just haven't read all her books, this is your warning. Like there will probably be some spoilers. So keep that in mind. But if you have read them all, definitely go take a listen if you haven't already, because it was so fun to talk about. And we had a lot of live in the moment revelations that we shared our thoughts on, and it was a lot of fun to talk.
On screen chills.
I almost cried once. I got chills a couple of times. It was a big 30. It was a lot happened in 30 minutes. Let me tell you,
a lot. A revelation of truths came out. Anyways.
Yes. Also, if you're not already following us on Instagram, go do that there. Our handle is at L.A.M.E Book Club Pod. It's the same across all social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. It's fun to watch our videos there. And join our Discord if you haven't already too. There's a highlight on our Instagram saved with the link. You can just click on it, join whatever you want. And I'm also excited.
Today talked about how they finished Assassin's Blade, and they're like, I wasn't expecting to cry. And I'm like, you get it. You're one of us now. Welcome.
I know. And it's fun to talk to people's perspective that read the books in different order than I did, because I started with Assassin's Blade, so I cried in the beginning of reading the series, but then that also meant that I like understood some of the little nuances from the first two books that other people wouldn't have. And I'm really grateful that I did, but I also could see how it'd be really fun to just be reading it, not think twice about it, but then to get to Assassin's Blade and be like, that's what she meant. Like, so it's fun to get everyone's perspective. Yeah, that's true.
Agreed. So in June, I want to highlight that we are going to talk about 4 indie books, and they are so good. I'm done with 2-ish of them. One and 3/4 of them. But they're so good. I love them. So we are talking about A Cursed Kiss by Jenny Hickman, Sing to Me of Dreams, Nightmares, and Mayfly Deeds by Sarah K.L. Wilson, Elegy of Twilight by Angela Ford, and The Unseelie King's Rebel by Alicia Kapek. So, number 1, we're going to have a link on our Instagram this week where you can go straight to these books on Amazon and buy them if you want to read along or read before we talk about them, which I highly recommend, because we're just going to go, it's going to be like this. We're going straight into the summary, but we're also going to be interviewing the authors. So if you read them and then you think, oh man, I would love to ask the author that question, hop on our Discord, let us know what the question is, or DM us, and we will ask for you. And I'm super excited to do that because I love these books so much already. And I was chatting with one of the authors, scheduling a time to do the interview. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going to meet a celebrity. I'm so excited.
That's so going to be me too, honestly. Like anyone that has like even not, I have 0 like notoriety, but so you could have minimal fame and notoriety. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to them, when in reality, they are just like a micro influencer on Instagram that has 20,000 followers, that lives in like not my neighborhood, but you know what I mean? Just like locally. And they live a very normal life. But to me, I'm like, ah!
Yes. Yes. I need to now tell you once again, and our audience for the first time, the time I met a real celebrity. And this story is the worst. Maybe the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Here we go. My husband Grant and I, we're laughing, we're joking around, we're boarding a flight. We get in line at the very beginning of the airplane where, you know, you see the whole line of everyone sitting down in their seats. And I don't remember what we were saying, but I looked at this guy, his head was down, and you could just kind of see his hairline and his forehead and like slightly his eyes. And I was like, look, Grant, that looks like Chris Pratt. And we're laughing. And the guy looks up. I kid you not. Grant grabs my back like as hard as possible. He's like, is that? And I kid you not. It was Chris Pratt on our Delta flight. I don't know why
is he on a commercial
Delta.
Flight?
I know. Because I have no idea. He saved the world, you know.
Good for him.
Private, I guess. But it was. I'm freaking out. I was like, dude, I love Chris Pratt. Not only him as Star-Lord, which is where he was more, you know, popular, but the OG Parks and Rec. I'm a huge Andy Dwyer fan. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I say I love him? Seriously, all going through my mind. Do I say I love him? Like, that's really coming off strong.
Just like Patrick in SpongeBob when he's trying to sell the chocolate. I love you.
I seriously
bet he gets that all the time.
Do I tell him I love him? Do I just sing to him? The pit. I was in the pit. What do I do? I'm panicking. And I kid you not, I walked past him, bug-eyed, smiling like a freaking idiot, just like looking at him.
No way, breathing loudly.
Yeah, I walk away, and he just like looks at me and kind of like smiled, like giving me a weird eye. And what does Grant do? Calm, cool, collected, goes right up to him. Is like, "Hey man, have a great flight," and fist bumps him. And Chris Pratt looks at him and goes, "Hey, thanks, man." Fist bumps him back. And so then we get to our seats. I look Grant in the eye, and I'm like, I just met Chris Pratt.
You did not meet Chris Pratt. Let me recap this so that I'm understanding.
Please.
Grant,
from your point
your
of view.
husband, who's not likes this guy, but not as big of a fan as you, got to have a small conversation with and fist bump him, whereas you, big fan, just stared at him and mouth breathed in his face as you walked by. That's what happened.
Get those details correct.
Okay.
That is what happened. I'd like to confirm that is how it happened.
Okay, good. As long as we're all on the same page.
Just like Mike Wazowski, when he's like, "I was on TV," I'm sitting there in my seat like, I just met Chris Pratt. I was so delusional and excited. And then what did I do? But just to be like the biggest nerd on the plane, watch 2 of only his movies on the plane. Text everybody in my phone that I just met him, and watch Jurassic World and Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm actually crying. This is my favorite story that you've ever told me.
I can't believe I did it. I thought I told you before.
I don't think you did in such detail if you did, because I don't remember this at all. Oh my goodness. Wow, what a way to kick off this episode.
Let's talk Heir of Fire.
Let's talk. Honestly, I just want to keep talking Chris Pratt now. No, but all right, we're going to jump in with chapter 36. Ellie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So chapter 36. Star-Lord enters. No, I'm just kidding. So we're back in Aderlin. Under the guise of listening to soldiers' tales, Chaol and Adian are investigating the 3 locations that they have identified as potential places for the triangle where they think the magic is being suppressed, all the things. They learn that all 3 places are marked with a tower of black stone, just like the one at the king's castle. And that makes me think of the teacher in The Incredibles. Coincidence? I think not! So that's exactly what I thought when I was reading the books. Moving back to the ferry and Gap, Manon continues training with the 13, but she suddenly realizes that Abraxos's wings need mending. So what does she do other than fly to the Ruhnn Mountains and trick a giant Stygian spider into giving her some of their legendary spider silk? Yes, that is exactly what she does. And honestly, I loved the scene so much, because when she's just talking to the spider and the spider's like asking her for all I'm just like, I was shocked that she's being, one, just so like calm, cool, collected, cordial and everything. But then at the end, when she like yeets the spider and just steals the silk, I was like, what? And I'm like, this is my Manon and this is my Abraxos. This is...
I think it was, I feel like I remembered reading this and thinking to myself, that seems too easy. Like, the spider's got to come back somehow, some way, and try to kill her. But the fact that, and I might spoil a little bit here, but it doesn't come back for a very long time. I'm like, that was way too easy. She just was like, I might need 30 yards. Thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Like, how did we just get away with that?
I honestly feel like that's kind of what Sarah was going for. I think she wanted everyone to be like, what? Like, because one, it speaks to her cunning ability, and also, I mean, just her skill in general, because before this, we learn how, like, tricky and how powerful and everything these spiders are, and I feel like that's just so ingrained in us. So then for Manon to be able to just so easily deceive one and get what she's wanting without having to give anything in return, that was
more to Manon.
What a power move on her. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I took it, at least. But who's to say? Maybe it was a little bit of a plot hole. I don't know. I want to believe that it wasn't. Also, this is not a spoiler in any way, I don't think. But skip ahead like 30 seconds, I guess, if you haven't read any of the Crescent City books. Do you think it's odd that the mountains are named the Ruhnn Mountains, and Ruhnn is also another character that she has in a different series? I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think twice about it until I was putting this outline together, and I'm like that. It's not like it's like Adam or Amy, like a very like common name. Like Ruhnn is not a granted, it's spelled a little differently. She spells it Ruhnn in
but in
this
Crescent
book,
City,
and he only has one N.
They talk about like Erd was word in their land, and I am on the train with Taylor that the Fender family comes from Fenris. I just think that those names are, and the word, not the word, but the worm, the Midgard worm, it's spelled a little bit differently, but it reminds them of Midgard, the city. Yeah. And Bryce makes a point to say that. So I think that the names that are so similar are intentional. And I do 100%. Think that could be something. I absolutely think
it's intentional. Because, I mean, I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't think it was. But it's like I said, too, it's a made up, like, I've never heard the name Ruhnn before reading any of her books. Like, I'm
and she has two
gonna
names
assume she either made it up or it's like a super old type of Viking or something name that she's like resurrecting for the book series, but it's not a common name. And the fact that she also has a character named Ruhnn to me feels suspicious, but I have no theories on like why the mountains are named that. I just think it's weird that there's a little bit of a crossover there, but that's that on that.
Well, actually, I want to say one more thing. I think that could tie really well into my theories on next week's Hot Goss episode.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, pause. If you're going to say anything potentially more spoilers, we got to give another warning.
No. But I think that'll tie really well into next week's Hot Goss episode when I talk about timelines. So join us for that. We'll preview. All right.
Yes. Okay. Chapter 38. So she uses the spider silk on Abraxos's wings. However, despite even having the reinforcements, Abraxos refuses to obey Manon and complete the crossing. And I don't blame him at all. The crossing sounds scary as heck. I wouldn't even want to ride a wyvern through the crossing. So, let alone be a wyvern doing it. Yeah, right. Thank you. Next. Keep.
That's such like a like most of the things we say are far off, but that one really threw me. I don't know why that's so much crazier to me than anything else you've said, but I wouldn't even want to ride a wyvern, let alone be a wyvern. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's just so weird to me. That's fair. I would also not want to be a wyvern. I would love to ride one, though.
No. I would love to ride one. I'm saying in context, like I would not want to ride a wyvern through the crossing, let alone be the beast that has to make the crossing. That's what I was. Yes.
End conversation. Start anew. I would love to ride a wyvern in general. I think they're scary, but I think I could get over it. Also, I just watched that episode of Game of Thrones yesterday where Daenerys rides Drogon.
Drogo.
Drogo.
No, Khal Drogo. That was her husband's name.
Not talking about when she rides him. Talking about the dragon.
I know. Dragon. I'm saying because she named the dragon after him. So what I'm saying, I'm like, oh wait, no, that was his name. I'm trying to connect the dots.
This episode just became PG-13. Okay, let's move on. Like quick.
You made it PG-13. I wasn't talking about her riding her husband. I was talking about the dragon. I was trying to remember his name.
Chapter 38.
All right, so then because he refuses to complete the crossing, Iksra is mocking her and then whips Abraxos as if she has the authority. It's not even her wyvern.
I hate that.
I hated it.
Oh my gosh. It's like when someone else punishes your kid. Not that I have a kid, but like that's so inappropriate, I feel like.
It is so inappropriate. It's happened to me, and I hate it. It's weird.
Has it happened?
And yeah, but unfortunately, it was awkward for me because it was my dad. And I'm like,
oh, that's different.
I
it's
feel,
like when a stranger
no,
is
it's
like,
not.
no, ma'am,
No.
you're not allowed to do that.
For
I
me,
just feel like,
well, no, with a stranger, I'm like, excuse me, who are you? I have no problem being like, that's my kid, stop telling me what to do. But when it's my parent, I'm like, this is such a weird eclipse of authority, and I don't understand what's happening. Anyways, but after she whips him,
by the way,
thanks very much. Then Manon beat her up, which I loved and was justly. It was just, and I'm glad.
It was just.
Having heard that Manon defended her wyvern, Petra, who is the Blue Blood's heir, later offers her a gesture of friendship. I loved Petra. Mm-hmm. I loved how it was almost like, well, for sure, like right now, you can't really tell where she leans. Like, she makes like all of it seems like she's really kind, but then that's so opposite of Iron Teeth witches in general and their personality. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to have empathy. They're not supposed to care about other people. They're not, they're not supposed to have a heart. Like, mm-hmm. But then it almost seems like Petra does, and we're starting to see that Manon has a soft spot for Abraxo. So it's like, but is that true? And I love the trying to figure out the like where the lines are blurred and who is blurring them. Back to, I believe this was in Rifthold. Murtaugh brings news that the king is sending his navy to launch a surprise attack on Wendlin. So I got nervous for a girl, even though I know she's not necessarily in Wendlin. I'm like, oh no, he's going to figure out that she's not there and that she hasn't killed them, and then everything's going to start to crumble.
If she's not in Wendlin, where is she? She is in Wendlin.
She's at Mistward. No.
What's Mistward's in Wendlin? Wendlin's the whole continent.
You're so right. I meant specifically the capital where you're right.
Like
I can't remember what it. No. Doranel is the Fae city. I think it starts with an N. I can't remember. No, I don't think so. Not where the.
I'm not good at geography fictionally, and I'm not good at geography here. Oh my gosh! I said the most embarrassing
thing the
other day. I need to tell you.
Do pray tell.
I don't want to tell you.
Please do.
To the point that I'm not good at geography. There I was in Chicago amongst my colleagues, my work associates, not a friend who would laugh with me and roll this off, but someone that looks to me as someone in a professional workplace. And I says to them, wow, I can't believe I don't ever think about the ocean when I think of Chicago. Because I'm sitting there next to one of the Great Lakes thinking that that's the ocean.
Ellie.
Not realizing where Chicago is on the United States map. And she said, yeah, sometimes it's big enough that it feels like the ocean. I think trying to give me a way out. And I was like...
Yeah. No, then you doubled down, I'm assuming.
I doubled down. I was like, yeah, because it's the ocean. And she was like, it's the Great Lakes. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I was just like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Oh no.
That's so fun.
Oh no, Ellie. I will say, to give you some credit, I don't think I realized that Chicago bordered one of the Great Lakes, but I did in fact know that it was landlocked and not bordering one of the oceans.
I hate myself.
Because as you were talking and you're like, because as I was sitting next to one of the Great Lakes, I almost was like, oh, Ellie, it wasn't even a Great Lake. But then I would have been
in my defense,
foolish.
This thing is so massive, you would think it was the ocean. You would think it was the ocean because it's a whole beach.
You could say the same thing about Lake Tahoe.
No, you can't because you can see the other side of Lake Tahoe.
You cannot see the other side of Lake Tahoe.
You don't understand. You don't understand,
Melissa. I don't understand, but you also are not remembering Lake Tahoe.
It is sand and beach and towels and umbrellas like it's the ocean. The plane
Lake Tahoe is like that too.
No, Melissa. You can see the other side of Lake Tahoe and you can go around it.
You can go around it, but you can't see the other side.
No, Melissa. You don't understand. It's so big. that the plane flew over it. And I thought to myself, I don't like flying over the ocean. Why all of a sudden are we flying over the ocean? Because you cannot see, even in a plane, you cannot see the other side. It is so freaking massive.
In a plane, you can see the whole circle of the Lake Tahoe. I just honestly kept going with that because I loved her going, no, Melissa.
I need everyone to understand that this mistake is justifiable outside of the fact that I should have known Chicago was landlocked. For me, that was a big my bad. But if you were just a pioneer and you just went to Chicago, you would think, I've reached the end of the United States of America. You would
this
not
is it. I've reached the coast.
This is a lake.
Yeah.
And for me, I should have paid more attention in geography class.
Good thing you're not Lewis or Clark.
Yeah, good thing I work with numbers and not groups.
Yeah. All right, so cartographer is off the table for Ellie. Noted.
Yeah, and for that reason, there's no way I would know the capital of Wendland. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Murtaugh also learns that there are monsters who look like strange, pale men lurking in the dead islands south of Otterlin. Additionally, Chaol is pressured by both Dorian and Adian to pick a side in the coming war. And I
can't believe
cannot believe we're still talking about him and where his loyalties lie. Honestly, like, I cannot believe it's still even in question for him, especially if Dorian is one of the ones urging him. I'm like, his whole thing is that he stayed and listened because of Dorian, not because of the king, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, Dorian is trying to get you to pick and you're not picking. So to me, that shows that Dorian is not where your true loyalty lies.
Ooh, good, solid point. So I will say, we posted a reel earlier a few weeks ago, and where Melissa so delicately put Chaol, and this is a spoiler, so move
if you haven't read Tower of Dawn or Queen of Shadows,
Chaol may be paralyzed in Tower of Dawn, but I'm convinced he never had a backbone to begin with.
Yeah, prove me wrong.
I do agree, but the amount of people in the comments, I think the vast majority were defending Chaol, saying, oh, I guess you just don't like a character arc. I'm sorry, this is not about his character arc. This is about the fact that he had no backbone in any of the beginning books because of the fact that he was willing to serve the king so tremendously,
so blindly
to the wrong person, and just was like stuck in that. Just like, this is what I'm I have to do this. And even Dorian, who he's sworn to serving instead of the king, is saying pick a side, and he's still conflicted. That point in itself, no backbone. Immediately, jail.
Honestly, too.
Jail Chaol.
Jail Chaol. I'm gonna start. That's my new hashtag. I'm just gonna hashtag that on everything. And it's not even. I'll post a picture of my family, and I'm gonna put hashtag Jail Chaol because I'm so firmly in that camp. No, and just to respond back to all the haters who said, I guess I don't like a character arc. I would argue that he didn't even have a character to begin with until the end of Tower of Dawn. That's when his arc starts. So you're right. I love character arcs when it started, and I'm passionate about that. Anywho,
you? I can't tell.
I actually did not mean to yell. I am so sorry. I did not. I don't know where that came from.
It add a certain je ne sais quoi to our podcasts when you yell.
Syllaboo for everyone who didn't like it.
On that note, I know we're doing a lot of tangents, but that needs to be explained. Number one, Celaena turns to Sulavu after Sam shed light on the fact that we can say that. Number two, when we type Sulavu to each other via text, sometimes it changes to Sulabu. That's level 2. Level 2, C'est la vie, is Sulabu. Level 3 is when it really autocorrects and turns to Tulabu. And that is now what we have been saying to each other. Well, Tulabu.
That is like the ultimate I don't care is Tulaboo. But I'm not there yet. I'm only at Sulaboo right now. So I'm glad everyone else that listens to this is now like up to date on our inside jokes.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving forward. Back to bigger picture Wendland, smaller picture Mistward. Celaena keeps practicing her fire magic, learning what she can about Maeve, and working on her relationship with Rowan. The spring festival of Beltane is coming up, and Rowan tasks Celaena with keeping the fires burning for the celebration. So she does. However, she almost again experiences burnout when Rowan rescues her. And I loved this though, because after he rescues her, he sees the scars on her back from the lashing she received when she was enslaved in Endovier back to Throne of Glass.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, she shares her past with him, and he listens and realizes how unfairly he's been treating her. And just honestly, what a total dick he's been. And we're finally starting to see the build of their relationship. And I'm like, finally! Only halfway through the book.
It was such a good turn because he finally realized like she's someone he can take seriously because she understands pain and sacrifice, and he's realizing that with the lashes, which it's like it sucks because maybe figure that out before you have to see a physical representation of that. Maybe listen to her, but also she wasn't really giving that information out either.
To his credit, anytime he said anything, she would just like shut down and walk away or cry, or like she never explained to him why. So should he have been treating her so poorly? Absolutely not. But he also had no idea how triggering a lot of the things that he
us, isn't it?
It is.
We just need to not judge a book by its cover and treat everyone with respect and kindness. Yeah.
The only situation I saw a reel on this. The only situation where it's perfectly acceptable to judge a book by its cover is when it's an actual book. I saw someone talking about this on Instagram, and I'm like, that's so
my collection
true.
That I only purchased because of this Priory of the Orange Tree. I have no idea what that's about. I haven't read it yet. It's on the TBR, but I solely bought it because that
pretty.
cover is beautiful.
And on the flip side, I have intentionally not purchased books because of the way the covers are, and then only to have people tell me how good of a book it is. And I'm like, well, the author needs to go back and fix the covers.
I would have never picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses. Had one, I had never seen it on Instagram. And two, if it was that original cover. The new brightly... Oh, I have it right here. The new bright,
the red and the
pink.
green. Yes.
I'm done. This is so beautiful. Immediately picking it up. The other one, I have the original Throne of Glass book, and everything else is the new covers, but the original, I would have never picked that up had it not been so strongly recommended. And I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, the whole series first. I would have never picked that up. So
honestly, here's an unsolicited advice from a nobody to all authors. Don't put your character on the cover. Have it be abstract. We don't want to see animated characters on the covers of books. Maybe you do. That, to me, it's not aesthetic. I don't want to see a picture of anyone. I just want a cool looking cover that has
the
loosely connected to... no, I don't like the way
Emily
those look.
Henry is writing.
No,
well, the romance reads that Emily Henry is writing. She has the characters, but they don't have faces. They're those like abstract people.
Yeah,
and they're cute.
But like,
I like those.
Like I really liked. Oh shoot, I can't remember the author's name. I want to say her name's Hannah, but I can't remember exactly. But like Icebreaker and Wildfire, those books of hers, I really like the books, but. Again, if I hadn't seen people talking about them on Instagram, I personally would not have picked them up because the characters are animated and on the cover. I will say it's not the worst. Like, it's not as bad as some other characters on covers that I've seen, but it's not my personal favorite. So all that to say, it's acceptable to judge a literal book by its cover, but not people. And back to what we're actually talking about. I also love that I don't love this in real life, but I liked reading about it. I like how Emrys had to say something to Rowan. Like, if Emrys had not been like, stop being so unfair to this girl, she's been through a lot. How he literally would not have even started to try and like understand her or be nice to her. And I like that it took a third party to jump in and be like, almost shake him and be like, what are you doing? For him to like realize I'm being a dick and I need to maybe not. I don't know why. Again, in real life, if someone else had to step in there. Yeah, there it is. In real life, if someone had to step in, I would have been like, are you kidding me? It took them saying something for you to realize. But in the book, big fan.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So Rowan then takes care of Celaena while she recovers. He tells her about Karanam, which is a rare magical bond that allows a Fae to give their magical energy to their Karanam, the other. Also, if you heard that, that's because Ellie's dog is in her lap and it scared me. So if it scared you, it was just a burp from a dog.
He was stretching and he was groaning like it did a big stretch. But that was my other dog who's down there.
Okay. But yes, so should we learn about Karanam, which nothing is introduced without it being something. So when I'm reading this, I'm like, noted, interesting. And then Celaena reveals that she vowed to free the slaves from Calaculla and Endovier in the mines. She tells Rowan that. And Rowan admires her tenacity and he appreciates her heart for other people, which good. He should.
Good work.
When they start training again, Celaena successfully creates a shield of fire. So she's starting to master her powers a little bit. I know.
Getting a grip on her. I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through this book at this point. We're not having control of her powers, which is so irritating to me, but also so endearing. I love not underdog in this situation, but just a story of resilience and determination. And I loved that same thing with Feyre, you know, when she was learning to fly and learning to control her powers and how to master them. I loved the same story here with Celaena or Aelin trying to learn her powers and coming into them and then not only learning them, but realizing how freaking powerful she is. I loved it.
Yeah. I think I liked Celena's growth and healing more than Feyre's, only because and like, to your point, I agree. I was like, good Lord, has she really not figured out her fire yet? But there's also 8 books in this series. Like, it's bound. If this happened really, if this happened as quickly as I maybe would have liked, the story would have been lacking. And like, we needed this honestly, figuring out her fire had less to do with figuring out her fire and more to do with healing herself and everything. And that was and I mean, same with Feyre a little bit. I just feel like Feyre's was a little bit more rushed because there wasn't as much story to go over.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Feyre was so weak and pathetic for so long. And then all of a sudden she's starting to then she kind of masters her stuff almost at once. But then there's another challenge and then all of a sudden she's high lady. I just felt like we got a lot of her trying to figure things out and then she just and then she just snapped her fingers and everything she knew how to do it all, or she just figured it out in the moment and was able to do it. And I was like, it was fine to read about, but then now reading this, I'm like, I actually think I prefer the way Celena's growth and her character arc was. But not to say I loved both. I think I like this one better. But moving forward, back to Manon. Her and Abraxos finally complete the crossing. And honestly, I think that was even a little bit more drawn out for me than I would have preferred. When they did it, I'm like, great, now we can move on in this storyline. I feel like we just talked about it for so long in her story.
It's true.
That I was like, good, now we can move forward because I need to know what's going to happen.
I'm the worst because if something takes too long, I'm like, out with it. Just tell me. But then if something
That's
happens,
how I am too.
I'm like, too rushed, too quick.
I know.
Make it drawn
I'm
out.
I'm too hard to please.
Do you know what? This is so funny we're talking about this. I brought this up to Grant last night because I was talking about one of the books I'm currently reading, saying I felt like some of the plot was a little bit rushed. And I said, and that is why I think truly why Sarah is such a talented writer. It's, when you read romantasy, you're going to have these fae creatures, mystical creatures meeting a human, them falling in love somehow, some way. And the storyline can be a little different, but at the end of the day, it's all pretty similar. And so it kind of gets just tedious. It's just, if we're reading kind of the same thing. But with Sarah's, I was like, the timing is so correct. every single time you're like, I want something more, she writes something more. And every single time you want to dive into the relationship a little bit deeper, she writes that. Like, it's everything you want. She hits it at the exact mark. And there's such a gift to that I can't even describe it well. But I just feel like the timing is her element.
It totally is.
It's just crazy. So
yeah,
I remember.
No, I agree. She's very gifted.
For the first time, thinking, wow, I really want Fair and Tamlin to like start building their romance. And that for me, that would be a perfect book, but no book's ever perfect. And at that moment, they were like, we shared our first kiss or whatever. Like, it really started building. I'm like, wow, she gets me. She knows it. So.
No, and obviously no one's perfect, because I also was literally just talking about how this is her book and I didn't, in some of her books, I didn't love it. But you're right. Like, I would say, honestly, her and JLA, Jennifer L. Armentrout, they both get it. Like, the timing and except I will never recover for what she did in book 4. But up until then, through the first 3 books, she gave me exactly what I wanted when I wanted, the same way that Sarah does. And in case anyone it's the From Blood and Ash series. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend. Just also know that you will be very disappointed at one point, but it's fine. The first 3 books and the 5th book are beautiful and so, like, exactly what you're wanting. Love the FMC, love the MMC, like, big fan of the world building and everything. Like,
I haven't read it yet. You're selling me. It wasn't on my immediate TBR, but now it might be. I really want to do Powerless next. Ooh, I would
do that, because I think it's going to be a series, but as of right now, there's only that one. So I would do that one first, because this... No, but I know that there's a second one coming out at the end of the year. I'm going to read it this summer.
Okay.
But all that to say, that one, the From Blood and Ash, is a lot more of a commitment than Powerless. That's why I'm saying read that one first.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to our real story, what we're talking about. While Celaena and Rowan are investigating the mysterious deaths that are happening, and then Celaena makes a connection between the creature that she and Rowan are hunting and the creature she faced in Adarlan during the ending of Throne of Glass and in Crown of Midnight. She, like, a light bulb goes off and she realizes, oh my gosh, there's a lot of similarities here. Rowan and Celaena find a host of Adarlan soldiers led by General Narok and 3 of the creatures they are hunting, ready to attack Mistward. So right then and there, it is confirmed that her suspicion was correct, and they set a trap to try and kill one of the creatures. The creature they ambush is too powerful for Celaena and Rowan, so then they flee. They lead it to the Skinwalkers, who eventually manage to kill it. And honestly, I'm going to put a caveat on what I'm about to say, because we do even touch on this later in this episode. It's not like it comes out later in the book. I didn't even think twice about it the first time, but now that I'm going through it again, I was like, wait, hold on, let's take a step back. This creature that they're hunting is too powerful for both of them, so they're running away. And what do? But they lead it to a creature that Celaena, inexperienced Celaena, already defeated. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But then the Skinwalkers are somehow able to kill this thing. I'm like, what? That, to me, was like, that seems like a plot hole. I didn't think about it at all the first time I read the book, but then now I'm going through it again. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But again, we're putting a pin in this because it does come back around later in this episode, and I just wanted to get my thoughts out in case anyone else had the same thoughts.
Yep.
They back at Mistward, Rowan takes charge of organizing the fortress's defense. And they also received news that the king has squashed an uprising in the Calcutta mines by killing every single slave there and in Endovier, which was heartbreaking. I literally could not
I actually cried
imagine
when I read that. Yeah.
That is so unnecessary and so messed up. Like, they're already slaves in mines.
Points to how evil he is. He's
I know, but
worst of the worst. He was terrible.
I know, but I'm just like, oh, like, the nerve, honestly. Like, these people already don't have a life. Like, you've already stolen everything from them. But by killing them, you're also then extending the pain to the families that's already missing them and knowing that now they'll never see them again. Like, which, I mean, I think they already kind of knew they probably would never see them again, but at least there's hope because they're alive. Like, I don't know. That got me too. I don't think I cried, but I was like, I think my mouth was ajar.
I was so
like
shocked with such an intense massacre.
I know.
I wasn't expecting it, and then it was written in, a random kind of chapter. There was nothing leading up to it, and then just the news of that, it just shocked me as it shocked Aelin and Rowan and everybody else. I
felt like I was Aelin receiving the news. Like the way she wrote it, she did such a great job. But back to Adarlan. Chaol, Dorian, Adian, and the people of Adarlan all then receive the same news of the massacre with shock and grief. They're all just as upset about it. Maybe not quite as upset as Aelin, but regardless. Back, I loved how there was 4 chapters in a row where we stayed in Mistward, and now it's a little bit of snip snap again. Back to Mistward, Narok's garrison arrives at the fortress, and all 3 of the dark creatures are alive, and the soldiers are getting in through a secret escape tunnel. So then I was like, okay, they didn't actually kill it. That makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this doesn't, how could something that they defeated already kill something that was more powerful for them? But it didn't. And so it all tracks. Thank you, Sarah, for being logical and not writing a plot hole.
That time. Checks out.
Celaena, Rowan tells her to stay in the fortress, but Celaena says nah, and she gets out to fight the creatures with her fire. And we learn that they are Valg princes, and they recognize Celaena's sword as Goldrun, once wielded by the legendary warrior Brannon. Rowan's 5 warrior friends, who are also servants of Maeve, arrive to provide reinforcements. So we've already met Gavriel, but he comes back. He is in his mountain cat, aka mountain lion, aka the lion, as they call him, form.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 twins, Fenris and Connell, and they are black and white wolves. Vaughn, who is an osprey, which I don't know about you guys. I did not know what an osprey was, so I had to look it up. It's a giant bird.
I'm so glad you said that, because I thought it was like an ostrich.
I also thought it would have been like an ostrich, but then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid for not knowing what that was, because there is, if you like the outdoors, there's I don't know if it'd be considered, it's sold at REI, so it's kind of a granola company called Osprey, and there is a bird as their logo, and I just assumed it was random, but now I'm like, what an idiot, Melissa. They literally just named it what that thing is and had that be the logo.
Nah.
But anyways, everything came full circle for me. Thank you. Everything came full circle for me when I looked it up. And lastly, Lorcan, who does not have another form. He is just a very powerful fae.
I want to pause for a second. That's really interesting that, and this might be a bit of a spoiler, but I don't think so. I think everyone's safe. We don't hear anything about, what's his name, Vaughn?
Yeah, Vaughn.
Yeah.
Vaughn.
Where did he go?
I say Vaughn. I think that's it.
Yeah, I would say Vaughn. That sounds right.
Yeah, I guess slight spoiler if you haven't read the rest of the series, but only because it's not real. We're just giving you some information that you will eventually figure out. But he just hardly ever comes back. He's maybe
never written in again.
He's briefly mentioned a couple of times later on, but this is the most we get of Vaughn in the whole series right here.
When you said Vaughn, I was like, oh, you misspelled Fenris. And it's no, who the heck is Vaughn? That's so funny. I forgot all about him. I wonder if, I know that Throne of Glass is really, like we said, tied with a pretty bow. It's done. But characters like that make me wonder if there wouldn't be a spin-off, kind of like what you said, where more of him is involved. But
potentially, or I also think, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that as the worlds cross over, he will probably reappear at some point. So he's mentioned here briefly, but we don't get really any of him because he's going to show up later on. And it'll make sense why we didn't get, because I might be making this up. I can't really remember. And honestly, this really isn't a spoiler, but it is something that's mentioned later on. I want to say that they even ask at some point, like, where's Vaughn? And they say, like, oh, he's off doing another mission or something like that. Like, I think, and maybe I'm making this up, but I am pretty sure they mentioned that at some point. And so I'm almost wondering if maybe whatever he is doing is what is going to be brought up in potential crossovers later on.
Ooh.
Who's to say?
Cool.
Who's to say?
Okay.
So, yeah, and then this is kind of we should have picked a different chapter to end on, because I feel the middle of the fight is where we're ending today. The Valg's darkness overwhelms Celaena, and it makes her relive her worst nightmares and fears. So have a great week, everyone. I'm just kidding. But yeah, this part I cried for sure reading this part, though, when she's like reliving the moment she saw her parents dead, and like, but then also like moments of them like talking to her and stuff. And we also get like she has memories of like her grandpa, I think, like uncle. Oh my gosh, just this deep hollowing sadness. This is like the lowest point for her in the entire series. This is when she hits that rock bottom. And it was so devastating to read about, because it was so realistic, even though it's a very unrealistic setting. Like, it was a very realistic feeling I think a lot of people can relate to. So it was hard to read, honestly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, whenever they talk about, I mean, like we said before, Sarah writes very graphically. So when they talk about her waking up in a pool of her parents' blood, oh
my gosh, I know,
blood-soaked sheets. That's devastating.
Part of me is like, did we have to do this, Sarah? But at the same time, I'm like, we did have to.
You did, because it's so much more compelling and dramatic with it
and
than
impactful.
Just to say like, oh, I woke up and my parents were dead. You're like, oh, that's terrible. It's terrible, but it is a very different story. But the visual
that you have,
blood-soaked sheets with your parents lying next to you, slaughtered.
Yeah. Oh,
awful.
So terrible.
Yeah.
But good news is it is bad for a little bit, but there's hope, guys. It will get better. And I'm excited for next week. I love that we're going to finish out this book. I want to say, I mean, I can't remember the exact number. I want to say, I think it's chapter 68 is where we're going to end next. Something like that. But it's the last chapter. So whatever the last chapter is, we're finishing this book next week. It's going to be very good. And then we will jump into Queen of Shadows, which I'm excited to talk about, because I am indifferent on the whole. At least the good news is there's less jumping around in Queen of Shadows than there is in this book. So it's a lot easier. Storylines kind of start to come back together again. And it's not as much of like 4 separate places happening all congruently.
Yeah.
But
wow, we're kind of getting through this. I felt like we would go all the way till December to talk about Throne of Glass, but we've got, Kingdom Ash will take a minute.
Fear
also,
not,
there's
because
still 4 very large books, so
yeah, the books just keep getting longer. Plus, we're going to be doing our indie books in June, so we won't be doing anything for a month in Throne of Glass.
And of course, if we make it to October, we're going to have a Halloween special where we dress up again. I don't know if this is ever mentioned on the podcast. I'm going to have to beat the Lorax. But Melissa, if you haven't watched our Halloween episode, if you're new here, it's a must. It's a must to be a part of the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. You need to go back and see Melissa, who painted herself literal orange, and then didn't realize that paint,
you guys,
was not like it was meant for skin. It was like oil based. It was really weird.
It was oil based. I'm such an idiot.
Get it off. FaceTimes me from the shower, and she's like crying because she's still orange, scrubbing and scrubbing, could not get the freaking orange off of her face. Did you have to go to church like that? Orange?
I had to sing on stage. But fear not, because I scrubbed 5 layers of my skin and the orange off. So only my neck was a little orange the next day, but it took a lot of elbow grease and skin layers to finally. The worst thing is, I cannot believe that at 27 years old I made such a rookie mistake. It even said I just was looking at, I was trying to find cheap orange paint on Amazon. Like, I was not paying, I did not do my due diligence. To be completely honest, I don't even think I understood that I knew oil-based paints were a thing, but I don't think I realized that they did that for makeup, like face makeup. And so I just am an idiot looking for whatever's orange and the cheapest. And it says in the title, it's oil-based. Like, if I had done even a little bit of pausing and reading, I would have been like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. But no, that's not my style. I am an impulsive freak. So I just bought it.
It happened.
And then I was orange for about a week. So that was fun.
So all that to say, if we're still in Throne of Glass by October, we will be taking a break to do another Halloween special.
Yep.
Once again, because Halloween is my favorite of the holidays.
Yeah.
Whatever we do might be up there.
We will, I mean, even if we're not in Throne of Glass, we will be doing another Halloween episode.
Yes.
So I am already thinking of what I'm going to dress up as, starting to plan.
I have to. I was Coraline. I just had a cute wig, but this year, knowing that Melissa was literally orange, I'm going to have to step it up.
You are.
I have an idea, but we'll see.
I have to outdo myself. The best part, too, is that we didn't tell each other what we were doing. Oh, no, you told me, but I didn't tell you. So this year, we're not going to say... Or it'll be a surprise for both of us, and it'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. And that's all we have for this week. So see you guys on Monday for our next episode of Hot Goss. And then the following Wednesday with our next episode of the L.A.M.E Book Club Pod. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.